Hey class, this is Mr. Odell, and welcome to my first ever episode of the Teaching Machine. Now, I'm going to start on Unit 12, Lesson 1, which is modeling addition of fractions. Now, I know when we see this word, it can be a little scary, but hold in there, because we're going to get through it together, so you guys can be better learners and make your parents proud. So, our objective is to use models to add fractions with like denominators. So if we have the fraction 1/2, the denominator would have to be the same in the other fraction in order to add it. So a model can be used to add two or more fractions. So let's move on. Before we start, I want to go over how to simplify fractions. So let's get the fraction 6/8. In order to simplify it, we have to divide, because that makes it the smallest amount. Simplify means to make the fraction the smallest amount. So now we have to find our greatest common factor between the numerator and the denominator. So for this fraction, we know we have 6, which can be divided by 2, and 8 that can be divided by 2. This 2 goes into both 6 and into 8. So 6 divided by 2 equals 3, and 8 divided by 2 equals 4. Gives us 3/4. That is our final answer. Now when we check our final answer, we have to make sure that it cannot be simplified anymore. So 3/4 cannot be simplified anymore. So that is our final answer. Let's clear our drawings. Let's try 8/10. Again, we have to find our greatest common factor. So a number that can go into both 8 and 10. We always have to divide to make it smaller. Now remember, whatever we do to the numerator, we have to do to the denominator, and vice versa. Okay, so 8 and 10. Let's try 2. I know 2 goes into 8, and 2 goes into 10. So that would give me 4/5. Can't simplify it anymore, so we know it's our final answer. Let's try another fraction, like 12/21. So I know that 3 goes into 12. I know that 3 also goes into 21. So I know my factors. So 12 divided by 3 is 4. 21 divided by 3 is 7. So we have 7/4. And that is our final answer because we can't simplify it anymore. Now say we're simplifying a fraction like 12/24. And let's say we chose 2 to simplify it by. We simplify it, we get 6/12. As you can see, I would put this as my final answer, but I cannot, because it could be simplified even more. So we have the fraction 6/12. We can divide it by 3, because we know 3 goes into 6, and 3 goes into 12. So our final answer would be 2/4. Now I realize we have to make it even smaller, so we're going to do 2/4 divided by 2 divided by 2 equals 1/2. Now that is our final answer. Now see, I went through this large process because I realized that I did not simplify my fraction all the way. So in simplifying our fractions, we have to make sure to be very careful. We don't leave our answer like this, 6/12. We have to make sure we have the smallest possible fraction by finding our greatest common factor. Let's move on now and use what we learned in the previous 2 slides for our first problem. So we're going to model a pizza is divided into 6 equal pieces. Draw a picture to show that 1/6 plus 2/6 equals 3/6 or 1/2. We have our pizza. Right into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now one person ate 1/6 of the pizza. Another person ate 2/6 of the pizza. Altogether, that would be they ate 3/6 of the pizza. Now it says, make sure to draw a picture to show that 1/6 plus 2/6 equals 3/6, or 1/2. I'm going to circle this 25 times so you guys see it. The reason they say 1/2 is because look at this fraction. We have created this common factor, which is 3, so we can simplify it, because 3 goes into 3 and 3 goes into 6. So we get 1/2. So make sure, like I said in the previous slide, we get our final fraction. You have to check if you can simplify it. Let's move on to our next problem. I'm going to use the cubes method for this problem because we should always use it on word problems to make sure we're doing it correctly. Sophia walked 1/4 mile to Sheila's house, and then they both walked together 2/4 miles to the pool. How far did Sophia walk? Explain how you found your answer. So we have our numbers 1/4 and 2/4. Underline our question. How far did Sophia walk? Explain how you found your answer. Our action words. Let's see. Do we have any action words in here? We have miles. So we know the unit is miles. And how far did Sophia walk? So we're going to look at our problem again and see if we have to eliminate any information, which we do not. So we have 1/4 of a mile that Sophia walked to Sheila's house. Draw a little house right here. So we're going to add 1/4 to 2/4. So to give us 3/4. Now we can add these fractions because they have common denominators. And I know we have to add for this problem, but you're seeing how far Sophia walked with her friend Sheila to the pool. So when I'm explaining my answer, if this was a quiz, I would say I used the cubes method to break the problem apart. Then I knew that Sophia walked 1/4 mile to Sheila's house, and then they both walked 2/4 miles to the pool. So I knew that we had to add for this problem. And I showed my problem by drawing my numbers out, using a little diagram, and using an explanation that's clear, concise, and that has multiple methods. Now remember, when adding the fractions, they must have common denominators. So I would highlight that in my problem, in my explanation, to make sure that I'm showing the teacher that I understand the concept. Now when explaining the problem, you could do it with drawings, you could do it with numbers, you could do it with symbols. There's other ways to explain your problem. For this one, I show a little model of the house, and I also show numbers to show I knew what was going on throughout the whole problem. Let's clear our drawings and see right here we did it correctly. So our next problem, number 30, we have 1/10 plus blank over 10 plus 3 over 10 equals 9 over 10. Now we see that we have all common denominators of 10, so we know we can add the fractions. So we have 1 plus blank plus 3 equals 9. So in order to make this simpler, I'm going to break it down. So 1 plus 3 would give us 4/10. So 4/10 plus blank over 10 equals 9 over 10. So let me redraw that. 4 over 10 plus blank over 10 give us 9/10. Now if we know our addition, we know that 4 plus blank equals 9, so we know 4 plus 5 would equal 9. So our missing number would be 5. Make sure when we're doing these problems, like I said before, read them carefully. We show our work. I'm going to write this across the screen. Show your work. I cannot emphasize that anymore because I know some of us make mistakes when we do not show our work. Make sure when we're adding our fractions, we know that they have common denominators. We also have to check that if we can simplify our fraction by making it any smaller. Remember, when we simplify, we divide. Now this first episode is to show you basic ways to add fractions, and I used models to show how to add the fractions. So our next lesson, which is 12.2, we're going to add fractions with common denominators. Now we did this a little here, and we're going to add more emphasis on adding the fractions on our next lesson, and it'll be a little tougher. So make sure on our homework we practice all the problems, take our time, do it correctly, and try our best. It's all Mr. Odell expects. If you have any trouble, go back in the video. You can watch multiple parts of the video. You can even pause it. And make sure if you're having trouble with simplifying fractions, use this grid to help you. Now you can find the answers in the grid on the bottom. I know they're a little small and hard to read, but if you practice it, the better you will get at it. So thank you for tuning in and watching my first episode. I hope you like my channel. I can't wait to get going with more videos. I will see you next time on the Teaching Machine.